Hello, it's Justin McDonald here today. Thanks for joining me. Results replay. Today, I want to get right to the point here. Face it, admit it, and assess the disadvantages of your offer. Now, I didn't get this from nowhere. I think I got this from experience, but it's also a Dan Kennedy-ism, as in Dan Kennedy philosophized on this in some book and or seminar, and I was studying it, and I was like, yeah, he's right. Where just like human beings or anything else that's natural in this world, every product, service, and offer has unattractive points. Because everyone knows nothing is perfect. Like, is there really a such thing as a perfect offer? When you open up about the drawbacks sometimes, your credibility can go up. And that's what really can help you out in these kinds of situations. So you might be saying, yeah, Justin, but I have the best price. Nobody's buying my offer. That's why. Because it's only price that's setting you apart from your competition. Once in a while, I gotta make sure I'm going live because I can't see what's going on the other side. So, okay, now you might take it a step further and say, all right, Justin, not only do I have the best price, but we do price matching. So, like, everyone's gonna have to come to us. I mean, come on, we say it everywhere. They say it everywhere that if you come here, we'll match the price. So, what do you think I'm going to get to here? You're just a commodity. If people are just comparing you to the next person based on price, then you're just a commodity. Now, I'm not saying that being in a commodity business is unprofitable. It is profitable. Some businesses literally run on the commodity aspect. Think about things that are bought in bulk, Walmart, convenience stores, things of that nature. Gasoline. Think about what a commodity is. Commodities are literally meant to be like, how can I get the best price for it? Whether it's rice, gas, flour, flowers, gravel, chlorine tablets for your pool, whatever it is, you know what I mean? Back when people used to burn CDs and make them at home, commodity, like, where can I get the cheapest one so I can, if you're selling a CD, maybe you want to get the cheapest you can get, if it's all the same thing. And then what cuts into the commodity part is literally where USP would start coming in, because things start, like, let's say we're talking CDs again, right? It's not a bad example. It's just something that I know people listening right now that are a little younger aren't really used to burning CDs. They're a little bit past that, I understand, but if you want to go back into the mid-90s, early 2000s, we used to burn a lot of CDs. And a lot of independent, smaller groups and bands would do their own promoting. Still do. But, everything's digital and streaming nowadays, so it's kind of a lost art. However, some bands would make their own CD, print out their stuff for it on their computer, and if the CD again is going to play the same whether they obtained it for $1 or 50 cents or 75 cents, won't make too much of a difference to some degree. Same thing if you're buying like pencils or copy paper, right? So what happens is when things become too cheap, then the illusion seeps in. Not necessarily an illusion, but it kind of is, where it's got like that dollar store mentality where like you're getting what you pay for, and that's too cheap. Like too cheap could also be like put it in the prospect's mind too, like this is just gonna be a piece of crap. Sorry, China, but from China, right? That's what happens a lot of times. So if somebody was burning CDs and they were typically paying maybe 50 cents, 75 cents buying in bulk for each CD, and then they go to Alibaba or something like that and they see that they're a penny a piece or 10 cents a piece, the consumer might want to start saving money, but once it goes down to a certain level, then the consumer knows, or they're ignoring the fact, or maybe they don't know and they're just about to know that there is a point where you can get things so cheap where you're just like, okay, what's up with this? So you see how that's a unique selling proposition. Now there are cases where again some people can override that and not care. Maybe this commodity is like I said, like it could be like copy paper or something like dirt or something that's just like, or maybe it's just like a certain kind of a seed or something like that, or I'm just thinking of certain kind of raw materials that like you could get, like staples or something. Like you could go to the cheapest, and it's just like it doesn't matter, anything will do. And then then in those situations, price is everything, right? So not get too far into that. Now, let's start talking about more high ticket things too. Like why would somebody not want your offer? Or what would make you automatically not want to buy something? Like there's all kinds of things that can go wrong, because like we started off saying is that there's no such thing as a perfect offer. Maybe the product itself, when the prospect gets it, maybe they get mystified and thinking like once they have it, it completes them and it's perfect. Like maybe it's a sports car or a piece of jewelry. Okay, but we're talking about offers here and why certain offers will pull and some won't. We will get into the who, because that's probably one of the biggest things. But also, not just the who, but what about the checkout process? I can't help but think about the checkout process. And I know I've heard another very intelligent entrepreneur talk about this before too, where they're saying that sometimes you can get to the checkout page and they were talking about like a 5-6 figure sale. They get to the checkout page, the website itself, the company probably spent thousands and thousands of dollars on it too. to get somebody to put it up there and work on it and make sure it functions okay. And there was hiccups at the checkout. Now can you think about how costly that is for a company that's big ticket? Like, could you imagine going to a car dealership? Could you imagine buying a piece of real estate and at their make-believe cash register, right? Just doesn't work. Card declined. Sorry, I can't process your request right now. A printer's down or something. Like, those are the things that you don't want to hear as a customer. And those are like the things that I would be very worried about and concerned if I had a business and there was hiccups there at any cash register. You know, even if it was a fast food joint and orders a few bucks to a high ticket item, high ticket client that's paying hundreds of thousands of dollars, like, that should always and definitely be improved, worked on, tested out. You don't want any hiccups there. So, I mean, that's just kind of like the scratching the surface on what's obvious about why somebody's offer cannot be perfect. But relating to that too, I was thinking having too many ways to get a hold of you that are open-ended could also be a bad thing to do with your offer. Now, let's say it could be in a book, it could be in a magazine, it could be on your website, it could be on one of your social media things, it could be online or offline, right? Let's say you have, here's my phone number, here's my email address, here's our physical address, here's where to follow us on Twitter, on Facebook, and all these other things, and just there's a million ways to get a hold of you. I understand you want to make it easy, and like in your checkout process, you probably take different forms of payment because you don't want to miss somebody's sale because they have Visa versus MasterCard, or they want to hook it up to their bank account versus credit card, or they want to use Stripe instead of PayPal, or they want to use Bitcoin instead of cash. I understand that. By the way, that could be something that could definitely improve your offer too. You know what? I don't even want to put a thumbtack in it because I don't want to lose track of that. I know, I don't want to call them out. I helped somebody with their fundraiser or their fundraising capabilities. Not just a fundraiser like an event, but like, I'm like, isn't there money on the table left here? Because the company is not digitalized. They're only taking checks like basically in the mail. Like, it's 2023, guys. Like, you know what I mean? Oh, well, we got to file for the, 5013C and all this stuff. I'm like, all right, well, then do that. Because this is another part of your offer that could just not, you know what I mean? We're going to go to the why and stuff and who in a minute, but like, you see what I mean? Like, things like that too, like you're only getting one source of payment, and like in that instance, if everybody's mailing checks, you're missing a whole demographic that doesn't even know what a checkbook is. That's why I thought it was funny. I was like, shit, you're literally getting like basically older people and that's it. You know what I mean? Like, you're not taking Venmo, you're not getting paper or anything like that. Nope. And it's all because, they weren't accepting digital payments yet. So, you imagine just getting this, you know what I mean? It was definitely pushed forward too because, it was said that people wanted to donate, but they're like, they don't have a check. Maybe they can't write a check that big either. Maybe they have to, and just some people, they don't work that way. They work digitally. They don't work offline too with checkbooks. So sometimes that could be it. So yeah, having too many gateways and doorways to get to you could be an issue too. Like you almost, I know like Gary Halbert would do something like this too. You almost like want to just have one way to get a hold of you. I mean, Dan Kennedy and Ben Settle are pretty good at doing this too. Like for instance, just go to this website, or you can fax me. You know what I mean? But I think having your social media tags too on certain things, you should definitely be a little conservative with it. Like I understand you want everybody to follow you on Facebook and Twitter and all that, but like first of all, just think about the business you're in too. If your business doesn't have fun attached to it, don't go hanging out at the fun parties. You know, fun parties is what I mean by Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and all those. Like, real legit business is being done and real legit businesses are on there. But they're all basically cocktail parties, in my opinion. And no, you know what I mean? If you're a plumber, if you work in bank and stuff, like, why are you on social? Nobody's going on there. Like, I understand you have an app, right? Your company is that big, they have an app, website. But if you're a bank, why are you on Twitter, social media? I'll see banks, they have like their YouTube tag, their Twitter thing, and I'm like, I'm not even that up to date on my stuff, and I'm actually giving and creating value on a daily basis and putting it on those platforms. What the hell is a bank doing? Besides, anybody that's like got money in those banks and has like brain cells probably is not like communicating on those platforms and like talking on like back and forth on there, because it's like, hey everybody, I bank here. You know, if you want to ever write a check in my name and just figure out what the routing number is or something. You know what I mean? Like, it's just silly. Like, this is like going back to your offer too, like not knowing who your audience is. So another thing with your offer too, so yeah, also be aware too, going to the social media thing, like when you're giving somebody any kind of a sales pitch or telling a story or anything, and you want them to like follow you and continue the conversation, the worst thing you could do is send them into like their drugs, basically. You know what I mean? It's like Twitter, Facebook, and like YouTube are like basically like drugs, right? And you're like, here, go fetch us when you're on your drugs. You know what I mean? Like, don't even bother. Like, there's other ways you could communicate that to your fan base and say like, oh, or if not, if they think you're fun and they want to invite you to the cocktail party, you know what I mean? They're going to either see your stuff or they're going to seek you out. So there really isn't, it's really not that necessary to even put like your Twitter stamp and your YouTube thing and all that. Because most people assume that if you have any kind of digital presence that you're going to already have that anyways. And they're just going to type in like whatever keyword that's going to find it quicker, or they're just going to move on and not waste their time. You know what I mean? If you type in somebody's name on Facebook or Twitter or YouTube and nothing comes up, you're not going to like you're just going to be like, oh, whatever, they're not on there. So it's like, and then also you lose their attention. Like, they're not in your reservation anymore once you take them off your platform and just throw them back on the social media platforms. It's such a silly thing to do. That's what could be also like screwing up your offer too. Like, you're like, hey, here's my cool offer, follow me on Facebook, and they're like, oh, all right, and then they go on Facebook and then they see all their notifications, they see all their messages and stuff like that, and you're like, not a good idea. You might want to be like, here, email me here, because once they pull up their email browser, hopefully there's a few less hoops they got to jump through before they, because there are probably going to be other emails there. But, you know, if they're looking for that email, you're good. You know what I mean? if they want that email, you're good. But like if you take them off in your platform or that platform and then put them on social media is just gonna suck them in, and they're just gonna be endlessly scrolling, and they're gonna forget why. And it's like it's gonna be your fault, basically, which isn't good. You know, people don't want to be tricked. Don't trick people too. And that was something I learned from Gary Halbert too. Like there is these knuckleheads. They thought they were clever by advertising on a parking ticket, right? Because they figured, oh, well, if we disguise this as a parking ticket, people will pick it up off their car and see our name, and then it'll get our name out there. Yeah, here's the thing. That kind of worked because people did remember the name and they picked it up, but it wasn't. They were like, screw these guys. You don't see what I mean? Don't do that. Don't like try to sucker people into your offer either, in other words, because people don't want to be tricked. I mean, and that was a lesson from like almost 40 years ago. You know what I mean? And the parking ticket thing, like, oh, they thought they were clever because, you know, they could put these all on people's windshields, right? And then like when you tick people off like that, you're just gonna leave a bad taste in their mouth, not a good one. So like, there's two more points I want to make to this about your offer and stuff. Like even for some, like where are you putting your offer could also mean a lot too. I mean, this paper is a prime example. It's kind of like the same thing when it comes to checks. Those people that are sending checks in the mail. Like this is just like, this in itself has just turned into like a thing of ads. Like you have to like really go through with a microscope and be like, oh, well there's a horoscope, here's some classifieds, which are still ads, and then sometimes there's ongoings, and then sometimes there's sometimes they'll do one article that's really an ad. Here's a store that's now open, and here's a story about it, and they make it look like it's like an actual story. So it's basically just an ad of ads, paper of ads. So like you put something in here, it's just like Valpak too. Like people are just gonna be like, what? Like cool, can I put it in the fire pile? Like, and then what? You're gonna get a very small handful of old timers that are gonna be like, oh okay, like I get just some of these ads in here. They're missing their target. Like, the people that want to buy this stuff aren't going to pick up this paper and see it and want to buy. I'm surprised things like this still even work. Like, okay, I get the plumbing one sometimes. I mean, the attorney, I guess. But, like, some of these in here, it's just like, why? Like, they're wasting money. You know what I mean? So it's like, here's an example. Maybe none of their offers really suck. It's just they have a very sucky way of presenting it, and it's not going to their target, and it just ends up being a paper that is just, it's just like when it comes in the mail, it's already B pile. Like, I don't know. I'm picking on them because I'm like, you have this full color thing. Like, that's the thing too, is like people still think that because it's in color or not in color, or just because something's bold or not, is gonna sell something. Like, well, why don't we put this full color picture? Why don't we put these graphics of ingredients that go on a pizza? Why don't we put these really fine detailed pictures that are the size of a postage stamp as an ad? Like, give me a break. Like, if I was to put an ad in here, you know what I would do? I would put like 5 words and then just have all that white space, black and white. You know what I mean? It would be the cheapest ad and the most effective selling one, because it would actually get people's attention. Because all it is, it just looks like confetti vomit of ads. Like, I'm already getting nauseous or a headache just like looking through it. So I was talking to somebody earlier too, and I was kind of like poking at them about what they see sometimes in ads that turns them off, um, or like, you know what I mean, like right away that makes them sucky. And it was a good point, and it had to do with just being too laser focused, like too niched, right? So, and products that are commodities too have this problem, because instead of just mowing lawns and then there's like 10 other people are mowing lawns and you're all kind of doing it for the same price and not getting a lot of leads. Like, instead of just being a lawnmower person, you could be a landscaping specialist and also, do all these other things that are included with your lawn mowing. And now you're not just a commodity anymore. Now you're a service, and you can charge more because you also, trim the hedges and do a little bit of planting and fix up these other things in the lawn and water the plant. I don't know, there's just like all these other things that you do. Like, maybe you do like some kind of like tree removals, cutting down branches, pruning trees. All that stuff could be included in your landscaping services, right? And now all of a sudden, you got the best offer in town, because you're not just somebody pushing a mower anymore for the same rate as all the other guys. Just race to the bottom, like, oh, we'll do it for 25, we'll do it for 24, we'll do it for 23, and then all of a sudden, everybody's just doing it super cheap. So when you're in that situation, the best thing you could do is just kind of step back and do something else with your product that makes it more fascinating, that makes it more exciting. But sometimes, now we all make this mistake too, because your product might not be for everybody, and nor should it be. But sometimes it's easy to over qualify candidates and prospects too, to a point where, you're just too laser focused on one group or set of people that you're missing all these other people, because they have to have this, they have to have that, they have to have that before they can enter your funnel. So that's something you might want to think about too. Like I said, a lot of us make that mistake. Like, some people lean too far into the I'm not for everybody. Yeah, but like, if you're only accessible to these specific people, again, you're going to be at a disadvantage to some degree. So if you're like, I'm gonna sell records, but I'm only gonna sell this one genre. Hey, that's okay, but because there's so many genres of music, you're gonna miss out on like 90% of the share of the market, because you're only catering to the 10%. So maybe it might be worth it to you to carry some of the other genres. I know they might offend you, but hey, that's a good example of what happens even on higher ticket things. Like, sometimes it's just way too laser focused on one type of person, when there's ways to qualify and to send a customer or a prospect where you don't have to exclude everybody. And you might want to start off too, it's a good idea to have an easier entry to get people that are like kind of like tire kickers that kind of want to test drive what it is and what your message is. So, you know, that's something you definitely want to try to think about too, is like, is there a way to make it easier to bridge the gap to like the masses where they can see like right away, like, oh, this is for me, this is it for me, like some kind of a trial, like a sample smaller version of what you have to offer. Um, and that's a good way to kind of break that spell of just being too laser focused. But I can also see why it's necessary to be like, I'm only for this specific reason, this specific person. But you know what I mean, you're gonna have to be very strong in broadcasting yourself to pick out like that small niche all over the globe. So I mean, that it's not an easy thing to do, but hey, maybe your offer doesn't need to discriminate and you're just being too laser focused. I mean, that's kind of what I'm trying to say here too. You know what I mean? If you're like, I mow lawns, but you know, if it's like this or that, then forget it. Like, you know, I mean, I understand sometimes you gotta do that, but like, you know, sometimes people are just disqualifying people basically just because they only want to work with one kind of person or whatever. But like, you know, you're gonna really miss out on the bigger market share if that's the way you're thinking. So, you know, also admitting flaws or doing something that's kind of like repulsive marketing too, I like, can sometimes be helpful too. Like, hey, don't don't read this, don't buy this if you're this or you think this or you're easily offended. Like sometimes things like that could actually drive sales because then the person that's buying it knows for sure it's for them, and then some of the people that are just gonna like basically return it anyways or complain, you're gonna kind of filter them out already at the beginning because you're gonna be like, listen, if you are offended by this or if this upsets you or if you're okay like in the state that you're in, then don't move forward with reading this, don't move forward with the process, the sale process. So that's one thing you could do too. You want to be honest in business anyways, and sometimes you do want to be laser focused and filter out certain kinds of people, and then sometimes it's not like that. Sometimes you do need to be more accessible to the masses, even if you're not for all the masses, because you wanna, you want to get their attention, and then you want to see who's interested in that population. And there's tactical ways to do all that too. So spending all your advertising dollars on things that nobody's going to read, I mean, that could be part of your offer that sucks. Is that like, your fan base, the people that actually are excited about what you do and want to like, interact, they're probably on social media and digitally, and you're gonna have to, be entertaining to them on some level. Otherwise, do a good job and find better ways to get new clients than saying to me, well, I spend $50 or $100 every week on ads that nobody reads, and then they're surprised too. They're like, oh, but we're in this paper and that paper. I'm like, yeah, but like, I understand those are big papers and stuff too, but the majority of people are not reading papers. And if the people that are reading papers, they're not reading ads. They're reading to read because they like to read, or they're reading ads that are so clever as being ads that they don't look like ads. So just because you're spending a lot of money to get your offer out there isn't going to make people just want to buy your offer. So you want to just, you know what I mean? You can't just be lazy and throw a bunch of money at it. I'm sure that does help sometimes, but you can't just be totally lazy and throw money on it, because you know what I mean, you could have the best offer in the world, but if you don't have a good call to action, like, or there's too many or not a good one, um like Super Bowl ads, right? If they're like, yeah, but we have a billboard, we did a Super Bowl ad, and nobody's buying anything. It's like, yeah, because you have zero way, you're giving people zero reason to act now. You gave nobody a place to go except here's our logo and just remember us when you're. That doesn't really translate into sales, and there's no way to prove that. Um, Billboards too are the worst. Like, I don't understand why people spend so much money on billboards. Unless your billboard says get off on the next exit because there's a Denny's or somewhere to eat, somewhere to get gas. Like, if there's like a destination of entertainment or like nourishment up ahead, then billboards work great. I thought that's what billboards were for. But if it's to go buy the next iPad, or it's like, here's our law offices, or here's our whatever, like, who is like, ooh, look at that billboard, let me go there. They're saying that they're like, yeah, let me go there because I want to get off at the exit and get something to eat. But like, when you're already in town or in the city and then you see billboards, it's like they just end up being eyesores. Like, what, like, why? So yeah, you don't want to do that. And then on contrary to that too, you don't want to be too hyper laser focused, and you know what I mean? You don't want to like miss everybody else's sale because you're giving them just some bogus qualification to get to you, you know? Like, I understand, like, within your funnel, you have different ways to send people, right? But how do you get people in your funnel? It's like you suck or your offer sucks or something. Like, you know what I mean? You gotta have an easier entry if you want more people to see, like, your ad basically, or see what it is that you're doing. So it's a balancing act, like, um, being too hyper focused on the high ticket item. Like, how are you going to get all these new leads and people interested? Like, you have to find a way to broadcast yourself to the masses, get them interested, get them to know who you are, and then when the opportunity is right, you can start pitching them the higher ticket stuff. So it's something to consider too. So if you're just like out there, here's my high ticket thing, chances are people that buy those high ticket things aren't even reading those magazines, aren't even anyways. So you're like pitching a high ticket item to a crowd that doesn't buy high ticket things too. So that's why the who is so important, to wrap this up. Like, it gets skipped so often. Like, oh, we need everybody's business. Like, you think about Main Street, you think about mom and pop shops. They're just like, I almost feel bad for them because they're open to everybody. As in, like, every nice person that lives in the neighborhood to somebody that could just mug them. They're just like, here, everybody, come here. It doesn't matter who you are, we will feed you. I think that's very nice and awesome, and I'm glad that we don't live in a society where we're getting discriminated against. But at the same time, I kind of feel bad for businesses on Main Street because they are forced into a corner where we need everybody's business. So being all inclusive too has a lot of drawbacks as well. You don't want, there's people that you're like, I don't need their $3 to $15 that bad, where I have to deal with that kind of attitude. Like, you know what I mean? When you are open to everybody, that happens too. Somewhere down the line, there's like a rude customer or somebody that's just like out there to kind of spoil your day, and you as a business just have to serve them. by law and probably for financial reasons. So picking out your who is important earlier on, because if you don't know who it is you want to serve earlier on, you're going to make the same mistake these people all do in these kinds of ad magazines, is that you're going to try to sell high ticket items, weird ticket items, off-brand ticket items to people that are just not into, like, I love ads. They're just not into this. They come out with one every month and they're like, ooh, why don't we put whatever holiday is coming up in the corner? And it's literally the same thing every time. And it's like, there's like one or two really crappily written articles that are basically just advertisements, advertorials. And then the rest of it is like these, 3x4 ads. And to give the old folks some credit here, how the hell they just try to pack so much into these ads that you're like, how do you read it? Bad. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, why? They put their picture there too. That picture is probably the same picture from 15 years ago. There's no way they still look the same. Why don't you just have your call to action? Get them on your platform, get them onto your website, and then you can say all this gobbledygook. I can't. It's not interesting. I don't want to read it. I don't care if you have your license and you're this and that. Like, you have to have all that stuff. Like, it's like, here, I'm a equal housing lender and I have all these legal qualifications. Like, yeah, you need to have all that, like, but again, like, if you don't know who your who is, you're going to make the mistake and then just ride along every advertising vehicle that you think makes sense. And probably none of them make sense because you skip the who. You're just like, yeah, but I'm really good at this thing and everybody's going to want it. And people buy these things all the time. And it's just like, that's not proper market research, is it? No, it's not. But you always want to get to those parts earlier on before you even like design the product or the offer. You want to know, like, who is going to buy this? What purpose is it going to serve them? Like, and then in that process too, like, hey, maybe how much money they make, their lifestyle, and demographics and psychographics are going to shape how you're going to talk to them, what you're going to sell later. If you do all that other stuff first and then try to find the market, it makes it much harder. Because there's a lot more guesswork, there's a lot more testing you got to do to see if anybody wants this thing. But yeah, you can do a lot of this stuff earlier on, like figuring out what problems people have, the age range, the income, all these other things you want to plan out first, because then if you do decide to put ads out in your high ticket, you're not going to waste your time with things like this. You might want to get yourself an ad for a bigger magazine, something maybe people that are reading, that are waiting to get their hair done or something at a nice salon kind of magazine, or airplanes, or like golfing magazines, or people that own yachts. You see what I'm saying? Fancy cars. Like, if you're going to be high ticket, why would you, if you're a high ticket lawyer and stuff too, why are you putting your full color ad and nobody's going to read in a stupid magazine like that, or whatever you call that thing? You know, you want to get yourself read by, you know, and there's definitely people that buy high ticket stuff that are readers. Pay attention to that. So, like, for all that money you're already wasting in advertising anyways, you could probably get a lot more bang for your buck by just picking specific types of magazines and stuff that, like, you know, like the rich and elite in your niche read. You know, don't waste your time putting your ad and everything else. Like, oh, I need to get name recognition on it. If you're a place on Main Street and you just open up, people are going to talk about it and notice, and they're going to try you out. And you got one shot. You got one shot. You might as well make whatever it is you're putting on Main Street the best you can. And, you know what I mean, get on the social media plugs or whatever. But you don't need to do all that other advertising and stuff that just doesn't work anymore. Now, believe me, I support printed ads and things like that, but I'm just like, this stuff like this to me is junk, and you see a lot of papers succumb to this, where it's literally all ads and there's no substance in it, and then they're at the same time, they're like, yeah, but why doesn't anybody like to read the paper anymore? Because for a whole generation plus now, you've shown that you don't care about readers. Like, I think it's absolutely 100% fine to have this many ads if you have at least like 3 to 4 times as much content in here. There's no content in here. There's no content in here. Classified ads, it's a joke. Classified ads. Like, we're already past Craigslist nowadays. We're basically past Facebook Marketplace at this point. People are going on here to buy stuff, and you have to pay a lot of times to have ads in these classifieds. Maybe not in this one if it's under a certain price, but if you do, these people are losing money just putting your ad in here for something that costs like a couple $100. Horoscopes, that's not content either. You can flip a coin or just go, like, ask Google or Alexa or Chat GPT or something. You can't, you know what I mean? And, like, all these other things, it's just like, you could put this paper out once a year because you say the same thing all the time. Places to see. Spiritual services. It's like, I get that there's a little bit of useful information like that if they're just talking to, like, one or, you know what I mean? But you could save money by sending new people that move into town something like that tells you all that stuff. I mean, to me, I almost get excited because of how many pages are in here, and it's in color, and then you open up and it's literally just crap. Like, I almost don't want to do business with anybody that's actually in here because, like, it's just like you're just marketing malpractice week after week after week. Some of them in here, like, have halfway decent ads. I won't lie, but it's just like, again, who is reading these? Not a lot of people. And even if somebody's reading it, it doesn't necessarily they're gonna buy it. I mean, okay, I guess there are some people that will only buy things that are in here. There are those outliers. I don't know. It's weird. But you gotta know when you want to have an offer that is more accessible to everybody, even if not everybody's gonna get it. I think it's a good idea to have a smaller ticket entry so that way, or just a free way to get to you, as in, like, you're giving them your digital brochure. Here's our mission, here's what we're all about, and some details, and you can contact us for more information. You know? I mean, I can't think of a business in the world that can't adapt that and find a free way to get people to see that. Instead of, like, here you go, put your credit card through here for 10 grand and then we'll talk to you. You know what I mean? See how being too laser focused, like, oh, this thing sells itself. You don't want to put your credit card, that's fine. Well, let's move to the next person. It's like, You don't need to be a jerk like that about it. So yeah, you just really want to be artful about that. Is what I should say. Use caution. You know, like there are times where you have a limited supply and you want whatever it is you have to just go in certain hands. But at the same time, if you're scratching your head because you have so much inventory and you have so much overstock and you have people that aren't working because there's no business coming in, you got to rethink your offers. You got to rethink your offers, and you got to realize that there's things in your offer that kind of suck. They're boring. They're too repetitive. You know what I mean? Or they're just based on price or something like that. So just try to think outside the box. So if you want to continue the conversation, just plug this in and go to results-acquire.com. And that's all I have for you today. Thank you very much for listening and or watching. And if you like this, just hit like or you can comment down below and I'll try to answer your questions. Peace.